Hey y'all, hope you're doing good today. So, in today's message, I want to share with you the details or where my mind is going anyway with connecting dots with regards to this overarching theme of a natural way that things flow. Okay, and I view this more like with regards to just order in terms of the spiritual realm, like how God designed everything to work together and so that it flows, versus mankind interjecting into that and trying to take control. Okay, and we're going to be talking about how this can impact us on a personal level. And I've got a couple of analogies. I hope you enjoy the message. So, I cleaned 3 of our fish tanks today, and we actually have 4. We have one that has our large goldfish in it, and it's like 32 gallons, I think, 32 or 35, and it's been a really fun, but I don't want to say challenging. It's been a lot of work to maintain the fish tanks, but it's also been fun. It has been a challenge for me, really, to learn how to maintain them, and so that the water sort of reaches just the right equilibrium, I guess, or balance, and everything is kind of self-sustaining to a degree. Okay, and this is going to tie into the message, but me and my daughter, we have 3 smaller fish tanks too for our betta fish because they can't get along. Sometimes I'll put them in together and let them kind of, at least have some company. And I'm hoping that they would get along and play, but sometimes they can kind of nip at each other and stuff. So we keep them separate most of the time. And their tanks are, 2.5 gallons roughly each. But so I cleaned those today. And what came to mind is that, well, first of all, I feel sorry for all the little fish in the pet stores and even here in our home, and because it's not nature, and I'm glad that we can provide them a safe place to live. I know in the wild there's a lot of predators and things like that, in different circumstances that can affect their environment. And so I kind of feel okay with that. We are providing for them and giving them a good life, but I think that nature is best, and so I want to use that as our first analogy today. So in nature, if you are thinking of fish as an example, whether it's the ocean or ponds, creeks, lakes, whatever it is, typically, as long as people are not interfering with the natural balance of, the good bacteria and everything that's within that water, that body of water, it kind of is just self-sustaining. And I love this. I love the fact that it's sort of like in that verse in the Bible. I'll drop in the description because I don't remember exactly how it goes, but there's a verse in the Bible that talks about, as far as believing in a creator, nature should be that proof for us. And it's a really cool verse. That's just my my summary of it. But that's how I view nature. It's all God's design, and He made it perfect. And so, even the creatures that are meant to live at the bottom of a body of water, and clean, they're the little cleaners. And, even all the little plant life that's underwater, how that provides for the fish. And so everything is sort of symbiotic, I think is the word, or symbiotic, and reciprocal, and therefore the whole entire ecosystem is self-sustaining, as long as there's not something from the outside coming into this system and interfering. So like with water or even air, but we'll just take water since we're talking about it, pollution, would certainly disrupt that perfect balance and have very bad consequences, right? I I want us to use this, and I have a couple more examples, as a metaphor for our personal life, okay? When we are, and remember, in the Bible it says that discernment is a gift from the Holy Spirit, but I think it takes us a while to sort of get familiar with that and learn to differentiate between when the Holy Spirit is showing us something versus it being our own mind, and learning to have confidence in this new gift that we have and all this, right? So, but as far as our own personal life, when you're considering using your discernment with regards to other people, okay, we know that people are vessels, and we're told to test the spirits, right? Because we have to be very careful. This is one of the major signs in your life that there is a dark spirit that is affecting you some way. It could be within your own mind. It could be some kind of conditioning from your past, but it also could be active in your current life through another vessel or vessels. Okay, and so it's not about judgment. It's not about, labeling people bad and all this stuff. It's just about, understanding so that we can do what we need to do with regards to boundaries and distance and privacy and things like that to protect ourselves. Because again, in the Bible, it says that, the enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy. And so it's not about being petty. It's not about gossip or anything like that. It's simply about discernment. Okay, so just look for times and situations and specific interjections coming from the outside into your family, into your friend group or social circle, or into your marriage, or maybe even all or multiple of those areas of your life. Just kind of, has something changed? Has the delicate balance within these relationships been affected in a negative way? Has the water become cloudy? Okay? Are the fish getting sick? Are the plants dying? Okay? Sort of, that's your clue that something has entered into the ecosystem of your family, of your marriage, of your friendship, okay, whatever it is. And so that just came to mind today. The other analogy I want to share is, and the other thing before I move on, I didn't even look at my notes here, but as far as the fish tanks, in nature, again, everything is self-sustaining because every part of that ecosystem that actually belongs there, it's supposed to be there. You know that it's supposed to be there because it's helpful. Every little piece is helpful and has a part to play to sustain the entire ecosystem. Now, in the artificial world, like if we have our little fish tanks or whatnot, it's more work. There's more work that we have to do to try and replicate that natural system, okay, where they would live in nature, right? And so it's a lot more just changing out the water and wiping down the inside of the tank, and maybe you need to add a little bit of salt, or maybe you need to put some water conditioner in, or whatever it is you need to do to make sure the pH level is just right and the temperature is just right. And there's a limited space in there, so you have to be careful about the fish that you put together, and you have to make sure they get along and all this stuff. If you feed them too much, that can I'll give you an example. I have learned with my goldfish, they love bloodworms, by the way, if you have goldfish. Not super cheap, but I kind of mix up their food, and I'll give them like pellets and stuff too, goldfish pellets, but they love bloodworms. You can also get little frozen, tiny little brine shrimp. I guess you pronounce it that way, brine shrimp. They're teeny tiny, but anytime I give give them the shrimp. They don't like them as well as the bloodworms, but it clouds the water really bad. And so I've tried it about 3 times, and I finally convinced myself that that's what's causing it. So see, you kind of have to work at figuring out, again, how to replicate what just naturally flows and works perfectly in nature. If there's an area in your life where it feels like a struggle, you have to work extra hard at something, take a look at it. You know, maybe something that you're doing really isn't necessary. Maybe you have either self-imposed an obligation to something in your life that you can kind of let go, or maybe you can give it to someone else who maybe they aren't pulling their weight in the department, you know, at work or in the family, or maybe there's someone else that's, you know, always around or making suggestions, and you're subconsciously or really unconsciously putting them in the driver's seat of this particular part of your life, because you know, they like to be helpful, and so you want to be a people pleaser and let them be helpful. And really, if you were to just do things the way you know to do them, maybe they would flow better. So just look at that. If something's off balance, if you feel like you're struggling and you're having to work extra hard at something, then it's not natural. Something doesn't fit. Something doesn't belong. Everything is not reciprocal and balanced. So I think that's all I have to say on that. But the other thing that came to mind was our spinal alignment. And this is really interesting. I don't go to the chiropractor, but I will stretch and kind of, you know, I'll even use my pillow, you know, on the couch or in my bed to pop my upper back and my neck and stuff like that. But I know a lot of people love the chiropractor, but I find it fascinating that all of our bodily systems are controlled by our nerves, our nervous system. And, you know, just, I don't know if you've experienced this. I have, and I know other people who have, where if your back is out of alignment, you're going to have not only a cramp possibly, or just feeling uncomfortable, but you can have other negative effects within your body. Maybe you feel like you can't empty your bladder all the way. Maybe you feel like your sinuses are stuffed up. And, you know, a lot of people would never consider spinal alignment, but I know several people who swear, and even migraine headaches and all kind of stuff, they swear by making sure that, you know, their spine is in alignment. And I have personally experienced too, when I've had it kind of click back into place, there's like an immediate feeling in another part of my body where, you know, whatever it is, finally the sinuses that were held up here just immediately drain and I can breathe again. Or, you know, it can affect again your digestion, and just all of your systems, all of them. So I find that really interesting too. Again, it's a whole system, okay? So I just encourage you. I think sometimes we, and society sort of conditions us to do this, especially more so in modern day, where it's kind of like each family has to have their own house, and it feels like we just go overboard, doesn't it, with materialism, and it's kind of like we don't always question. It's like, why are we doing this? Why are we working so hard to have all this stuff? And then it's almost like all your stuff winds up owning you instead of you owning it, and you're working to have all this stuff and so on. But I think that it's a whole subconscious mindset that's driving us, really. And if I had to sum it up, I would just say, in terms of just our modern way of living, modern society, I would sum it up and I would say this. It's sort of like individualism, and everything just, you know, sort of like we all have to be Superman or Superwoman. We have to just all carry the weight and responsibility of all this stuff, that if you look back in time and history, you had, you know, tribes and true, real communities of people who worked together. And I just admire that, because then you could share your talents with one another, you know, and it kind of relieves the burden from everyone, and it's more balanced, and it's just again, it's more of a system, an ecosystem. Instead of everything being placed, you know, on one person, you have this body of spirits, of souls that are coming together to share, excuse me, voice is cracking, to share in the work that has to be done. And I just think that's beautiful. So anyway, I just encourage you to view your home as an ecosystem in every way, not just materially. That would be part of it too. Your home, your property, your immediate family, your marriage, your group of close friends. View that as sort of an ecosystem. And the reason why I say that is, if you find that something isn't working properly, then you can identify, you know, where you're out of alignment, okay? And you need to take a look at something that has caused that, you know, and especially like with the ecosystem, I think that's really a better metaphor. But as far as the alignment metaphor, you also could use that in terms of being aligned to God's word. And the more you read it, and the more you learn, and the more he shows you in your real life, you know, and it proves true, it proves the Bible true, then you're going to sharpen your discernment that way too. And you'll be able to catch these points of interference in your life, okay? And then this was just really interesting. So I had this dream last night. I haven't had it in a while, but all my life I have had a recurring dream. And the theme of it is that I'm at school. I'm at school of some sort, you know. I've been in different kinds of school. Sometimes it's college, sometimes it's high school. I don't really know a lot of times. Sometimes I've been a student. Most of the time I'm a student. Sometimes I'm the teacher, which I did actually teach public school for a little while. But in all of these dreams I have, the recurring part of it is the fact that I'm in school, and the fact that it's very chaotic. There's a lot going on, and it's just total chaos, and yet everyone's fine with it. And I'm just trying to do my best in the midst of it. And yet I either end up feeling like a failure, or I'm kicked out, or I drop the ball with my work, or I am blamed for something. And there's nothing literally I could have done any better than what I did. So it's really interesting that I keep having that dream. And I'm trying to dig for the ultimate meaning of my life. But I want to share with y'all. So I was like, okay, I'm going to look this up here. My Latin English dictionary. And the word school in Latin is actually ludus, L-U-D-U-S. And that's the word for school, okay, in Latin. But it's also the word for play, game, sport, pastime, diversion, mere child's play, joke, fun, playing around, fooling around, lovemaking, again, school, public show, public game. And then I thought that's really interesting. So, and then further down it mentions tricks, and I thought, okay, I want to look at this root here, L-U-D. So I looked at the first word in Latin that has L-U-D, and it's L-U-D-I-A, meaning actress or gladiator, specifically a female, which was interesting. But the next word down, L-U-D-I-B-R-I-U-M, means a toy, a plaything, an object of derision, the butt of ridicule, frivolous behavior, sham, pretense, a sucker, to be made a fool of, to be taken by someone else. So, yeah, I thought that was really interesting. It's like, okay, why would school be associated? And of course, that was not the right word for school, but even the word for school that I shared with you all, it was related to games and playing, and I just found that really interesting. And so, but yes, what's interesting is, again, my dream, it's like every time it turns sour, it's like I'm in the middle of this just totally bizarre, chaotic environment, okay? And I'm doing everything I can. I mean, I'm doing everything right. But in the end, it always kind of turns negative. What I had to learn is that what can seem like a natural environment or a naturally occurring circumstance isn't always naturally occurring. I'm pretty sure my fish know that they're in fish tanks. But if they've never been in a natural environment, how would they know? So maybe they don't know. Maybe they think this is it. This is, I'm in the ocean right now, and they're in our little 32-gallon tank. I don't know. But what I'm getting at here is, as part of our discernment and sharpening that, just consider that, sometimes situations, experiences, environments may not be naturally occurring, especially if something's out of balance, especially if there's an element of chaos, of if there's red flags. Okay? And yeah, you can learn what red flags are from research, sure. But the truth is, wouldn't it be nice if we learned it in school? If academics would add that to the core curriculum, that would be great. But the truth is, that's the job of our intuition, isn't it? It's just a matter of us trusting it. But if something's not right, if there's pollution in that body of water of your life, any area, all areas, whatever it is, remember, think of it as an ecosystem. Something's out of balance. Not only could there be interjection somewhere, but the whole entire situation that you're navigating that feels chaotic may not even be natural. And I could say that this could be literal, a literal fabrication or setup, as we know that sometimes people do that. But it also could be in a spiritual sense too. And so I don't want to try to go too far down that rabbit hole, because it gets into, well, then why and what's the purpose? And it says in the Bible, God uses all things for the good of those who love him. Maybe we're being tested, things like that. I don't know. But when you're trying to really be on point and be sharp and awake and catch these things that shouldn't be in your place of peace, okay, just consider the metaphor of an ecosystem. And so I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that you found it interesting. Most of all, I hope it got the wheels turning, because I bet you have your own independent, unique thoughts that have been generated just from hearing this message. And that's great. All I want to do is provide a starting point. And then from there, you can go and do your own research, right? Because I don't ultimately want to be the one who is leading you in any way. I want to just share some ideas that come across my path, and hopefully that will spark interest within you, and maybe it's just meant to be. And then from there, you kind of tune in like a radio receiver, right? And you tune into your own inner guidance from that point. So Again, I hope you enjoyed the message. Thanks so much for coming along to hear it. I hope that you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you again very soon.